Sometimes a film forgoes traditional notions of storytelling and entertainment in order to make a statement. This has varying levels of success, and it's all too easy to create something that just comes across as boring and preachy. An example of one of these statement movies is the 2012 film The Comedy, and it's one that I find myself unsure on how I feel about it. The film follows Swanson, an aging middle-class yuppie who is kind of just drifting through life. Completely desensitized to everyone and everything, even his similarly douchebag hipster friends, he throws himself into situations where he provokes a myriad of strangers, seemingly just to get a reaction out of them or just find some sort of purpose. Now, already based on that synopsis, it might sound like the worst movie ever made, but I think there's a little more going on than that. The big statement of the film is basically just too much irony is bad, okay? Despite its title, it's definitely not a comedy, and it feels like you're supposed to find a lot of his antics more cruel and unfunny than anything else. It comes across as a critique of this type of person, and also the dangers of lethargy. Someone with so much time and money on their hands who has jokingly pretended to be obnoxious for so long that not even they can tell when they are joking anymore. This would be a seemingly bad thing for your main character to be. Swanson is a prick to everyone and is unbelievably unlikable, but it's implied to be done out of fear and distrust of human connection, and you get the feeling that no matter how much you hate him, he probably hates himself just as much. It's like he never knows what to say to anybody that wouldn't feel dissatisfying or ingenuine, so he just makes a poor joke, just making it worse, which is unfortunately a feeling I can relate to. One of the better scenes in the movie that conveys this is his job interview for a below minimum wage kitchen hand position. Though he's already financially very well off, he desperately wants the job, seemingly just so he can have something to do. There's an underlying patheticness to him in this scene, and it's one of the few times in the film that he's openly vulnerable to another person. It was those really little moments that made the film for me, and they do a large part of creating its atmosphere of middle-class apathy. So while the film vilifies him for his actions and misdeeds, you are invited to feel pity and or empathy for him, and even maybe hope for some possible redemption. Another potential problem with this movie though is the way it's told. The film is very slice of life, with no real driving goal or stakes. Again, this feels like it's an extension of Swanson's own lack of goals, but the film skirts in dangerous territory. It's not without structure though. The scenes have a natural, if kind of slow build-up, with his stunts getting progressively more daring and desperate. There are also a couple of ongoing threads, like dealing with his sister-in-law and a couple of relationships he tries to initiate and fails at. All of this serves as a couple of sturdy enough tentpoles to keep it on track and feeling deliberate. Deliberate doesn't mean not boring though, and for every engaging scene like the job interview or the taxi incident, there were just as many that made me want to crawl into a hole and never watch another movie ever again. Deliberate also doesn't mean not pointless, because it kinda does feel pointless, but again, at points it almost feels like it's the point to feel pointless, and you get the picture. This pointless feeling is somewhat alleviated by the ending. This final scene was appropriate and gave a nice sense of purpose. It was probably the best part of the entire film. I liked how small a scale and understated it was too. Just a small moment of this character's life. And it's the closest thing to a sweet ending this type of movie can have and still be this type of movie. Swanson is played by Tim Heidecker of Tim and Eric, with Eric himself appearing in a smaller role. The two of them are known for their extreme oddball anti-humor, and the film is definitely vying off that. For two guys who usually try to be as awkward and shit as possible for comedy, they have fairly impressive acting chops. Tim can pull off a listless stare like nobody's business. Everyone else was good too, all working within the film's understated naturalistic style. The visuals aid to this naturalistic atmosphere, with lots of dull, almost smoggy colors to the grade, and long shots that would hold on nothing forever, usually when he's with someone else on his dinghy. These long shots would also happen during scenes that would be typically done in shot reverse shot, usually just on the person listening to Swanson's bullshit. It's an interesting choice. I think it might have been to heighten his disconnect from everything, as well as just show how frustrating he actually is. The score is low-key and melancholic, being only used sporadically, and the use of diegetic music was good too, as if the characters just put it on as white noise in the background to help distract themselves from their unfulfilling lives. However, despite being mostly fine, there were a couple of technical elements that I was just unsure of. While things like the missed focus pulls I'm certain were just blunders, some of the odd framing and awkward edits kinda straddle the line between feeling like a mistake and a deliberate choice, and even if they were on purpose, I can't quite say they were all that effective in many cases. But I don't know, maybe that's the point. And those three words is what makes reviewing a film like this tricky. Any part of it labeled bad can be counter-argued with, that's the point. And that part was supposed to be bad and uninteresting and tiresome. That the film itself is soaked in so many layers of post-ironic, sarcastic post-postmodernism as a statement against post-postmodernism, and that kind of lifestyle because insert wordy analysis here. I don't know if I really believe that kind of thing. And that level of wank seems to be almost the stuff the film is against, but I don't know, it's hard to tell sometimes. The film's like hipster bait and anti-hipster bait at the same time, and it doesn't always mix very well. I do think there is some value to be had in the comedy. It was dull and boring, and I hated them all, and it made me feel like shit, but in a way I kinda liked the movie. It set out to do what it wanted to do, and it did it. And on some level I related with the character, even if I really didn't want to. I can see why other people would hate it though, and that's perfectly valid too. It's pretty damn unpleasant, and the sacrifices it makes to prove its point might not be worth it. Ultimately, it's a film I'm glad to have seen, but one I don't think I'll want to watch ever again. Hey, at least in this movie you get to see this piece of man meat. I mean, just look at that body, sculpted by the Greek gods themselves.